Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Board Policy Committee meeting for November 15th, 2016. Lynn, has the meeting been properly posted?
Yes, we have.
Thank you. And this would be the time for citizens to address us if they wish. There are no additional people here, so we'll pass on that. We have a number of items to cover tonight. First one, approval of the policy minutes from our October meeting. You have those attached here.
I'll move to accept the minutes from our
Moved by Barbara, is there a second?
October meeting.
Second by Joel. Thank you, Joel. Any questions, concerns, or changes to the minutes? Seeing none, we will just vote. All in favor of accepting the minutes, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0.
Thank you.
Our other action item is a little bit more complicated than that. I don't think you guys need to be too much refreshed on this because we've been going through it for some time now, but part of our plan was to present a pathway that we would use for completing this significant job. And that was passed at the board meeting. Now we are going to go into the way we set up the pathway, and that is tonight we're going to review the series from 0000 to 4000, and that is your first two binders. So Joe's had a little bit of a refresher on this himself, so I'm going to have him share that with you before we get into any questions you might have.
So yeah, we last week approved the pathway to approval, the board did, and tonight we're bringing the first 5 series of policy to committee. These first 5 series had a preliminary review by the assistant superintendent in charge of each department, or the superintendent. So Todd and Chris Hedstrom have reviewed these policies before they were brought to you today. Yesterday I met with Dr. Gray, and today with Mrs. Hedstrom to review their series again. So if you look at your binder, you'll note that there were some changes made to policies. We reviewed the notes that were there, and we've got clarification now in what's going forward. The binders that we have, or the books that we have with us, are the rough draft of policy. So like I said last week, there are spelling errors in there are grammar errors in there. Should you notice those, Lynn Cummings and Richard Zinnen are doing the review of that to look for spelling and grammar. So if you see any, pass them to them, but know that the book is being reviewed for spelling and grammar, as is the accuracy of how we operate as a system. So yesterday when I met with Dr. Gray, today when I met with Mrs. Hedstrom, we reviewed the proposed changes that they had. So what you see earmarked. We discussed a few of those changes, and we are going to be keeping that in. And so, for example, just to direct you to a change that was originally proposed and is being added back in or is being clarified. If you were to look at support staff policy 4131, the 4000 series of the policy, there's a section in there that says selection of staff and reduction once positions have been identified will be based on the following, and there are 4 points in there, A to what should be D. Mrs. Hedstrom has worked extensively on our staff handbook and the procedures in that handbook for layoff, and that is for reduction in force. And so those are the procedures that were followed. So these 4 bullet points are going to be amended to say the procedures outlined in the staff handbook. The staff handbook is approved by the Board of Ed, so it is all what we're currently doing. We're just going to direct people to the handbook for those procedures.
So it will not have an ABCD.
Correct. It's just going to be.
So that's going to go away, and you're going to have referred to the handbook.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
And Lynn will be working within the system, within that virtual protected network that Richard Zeman had talked to us about, to make these corrections on a policy by policy basis. So you'll have that in hand. Another policy, 3425, if you were to look in the benefits section. 3425, professional staff. The policy that was presented from NEOLA was a schedule of current benefits shall be available in the district office and the main offices of each building. That's going to be posted on our website. So after meeting with Chris today, we looked at the policy. We have that posted under the benefits section in HR on our website, and so we're going to direct people to our website and policy, which is where those benefits will be posted. Yes.
So, just let me get this straight. So this sentence is going away. There's going to be a new sentence in there that says that will refer people to the website.
Correct. Schedule.
Now that will be a website spot that only employees can access?
No, that's a website spot that anybody who's interested in the district. We do not have a protected staff link for benefits. If you were to go to the Waukesha main page and you were to go to employee and wellness, you can see benefits, and anybody can click on what those benefits are. That's what this is.
Very good.
Yeah, I just was wondering if there will be a hard copy of this somewhere in the district in case somebody needs to come in. No.
You'll be able to come into the district and access everything electronically. We will not be maintaining a paper book of policies.
So where will people go? To the computer room 129, or where will they go?
If somebody doesn't have a computer and they're coming to meet with me over a policy issue, or Sue Ettinger or Lynn or whatever, we can go online and print the policy and
But what if they just want to come in and review it because they don't know? They don't have a real issue with it, but just want to.
I would say
Where would
based
you
off,
send them?
I would direct them to any public library to access it.
Oh, okay.
We have computer kiosks available in the Enrollment and Transportation Office where families can access the Chromebook to look at stuff. I would share though that based off of my experience, I've had people who come in and question why was this discipline administered as an example, or how is this determined, and I pull up the specific policy. So it's not that somebody's looking for the paper.
No, but if they have a specific, I was just thinking, generally speaking, if somebody didn't have a computer and wanted to, have access to it, all right, go to the public library. All right.
Public library or
Or they can come to
Enrollment
my
and
house.
Transportation Office.
My house.
That's good.
You like that?
Yeah, coffee and cookies and all.
Absolutely. Oh.
So those are some examples of the review that we've done and some of the minor tweaks just to make sure we're capturing our practice.
Okay, Joe?
Yeah, I like that approach where we can reference something that we've already determined, such as the handbook, so that we don't have this posted in multiple places and we have to remember, gee, if we change it here, we have to change it there. I think this is a lot more efficient than having it published in two different places. And having it all up on the website too is going to have greater flexibility compared to what we've had in the past. Here's the blue binder. How accessible is that to the public? So.
And if you do want to familiarize yourself a little bit, Richard always referenced the Greenfield School District, where you could go in and you could look at the policy and you could click on the guidelines and you could click on the associated forms and the handbooks and so on and so forth. So it was all very interactive for the parent at home, for the administrator, for the teacher.
Wow.
And so it's a lot easier one-stop shop for this. Whereas now you can look at the policy, but then you've got to go to the HR section of our website and then pull up the employee handbook. So this is going to make it a lot more interactive.
Okay.
What do we do with these drafts? Can we keep them?
They're ours. They're going to be our frame towards approval. But once the manual is approved with all edits, that will then be the virtual, that will be all online.
Okay,
So you can use it as a point of reference, but it's not going to be the exact policy. Online will be the most current policy that's in action.
Thank you.
There's a danger of getting that stuff so old and keeping it that may not be a real good idea.
I agree.
Joe, probably, I know I have a few items on my list of things that I would like to, I don't know, challenge is the wrong word, but at least question.
Sure.
I don't know if others have it that way or not, but do you want us to go through those now, or you want to do them separately, or?
You know, we could take them separately if you would like. Again, we're looking at this from a committee as an approval based off of what we set up in that pathway. So we can talk and we can discuss policy. If you do notice anything, you can always give me a call individually on some specific questions that you have. Again, we're shooting for February approval, so we have some time, you know, where the proposal to the board last week was any substantial change to policy would be brought again to the full board's attention. But if there's some smaller clarifying pieces, or if it's, you know, a minor word change, we would keep that at the committee level for approval.
I think anything that I would ask you about be the latter. It doesn't require committee approval. Other concerns or questions on how to deal with this? So basically what we're going to do is say we've looked at 0 to 4,000 and we're ready to say okay with these.
So far.
With the not the consequence, with the consideration that we will be providing you with some questions on some of them that might require either rewording or updating. Updating not so much.
Very, very similar to how, you know.
The ones you just mentioned.
Yeah, a little bit later in the meeting tonight, we're gonna be talking about the graduation. And so there's after it went to the board for a first reading, there was a question about the civics exam, and that's coming back to committee for us to talk about tonight. The same thing will hold true to this book, what you have in front of you. If there's something against substantial, we'll be bringing that back by specific policy in December. And then we'll have the month of January to talk about that as well, onto the full board, then in February for approval.
Are you okay with that? That's good. That would mean that we would, at this point, want a motion for the approval of, excuse me, NEOLA policies series 0000 through 4,000.
So moved.
Joe moves to approval of that.
Second.
Barbara
Mm-hmm.
seconds it. Any further questions on that?
Just a comment.
Yes, Barbara?
You know, Joe, I'm absolutely amazed that we went from a policy book about this size to that size. Is it because we added on or we put more in there? Why did it end up to be so much more?
I give you two reasons.
That's single-sided.
One is side by side. That's one side of the existing one is two-sided.
Oh, that's true.
The other is there's an awful lot of compliance-based policies in here that we probably did not have before.
That's what I was wondering.
And the third reason really is there are things that will appear in more than one place, because rather than referencing them back and forth, you will find like 3120 and 4120 have exactly the same wording in them, but they're for two different populations.
Right, NEOLA is very specific to who we're talking about.
Yeah, they are.
They're gonna talk about students, they're gonna talk about support staff, they're gonna talk about professional staff, so there on the surface could be a little bit of duplication there. I think the other thing, the comprehensiveness of some of these policies, when you look at the, for instance, the field trip policy, we've all talked about it, the pupil non-discrimination policy went from a one-page policy to what is recommended now to OCR being a 20-page policy. So some of those updates, plus filling in a few of the holes that were recommended from federal legislation or state legislation, just making sure that we're as comprehensive as we can be. We have all of our bases covered. That's why the book looks bigger.
Thank you, Joe. Good answer.
Okay, all right, and at this point, all in favor of approving the approval of policy, NEOLA policy series 0 through 4,000, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 5-0 on. There's a big question mark on your face, Lance. Are you okay?
No,
Oh, I
no,
thought-
no.
All right, good. And we now have information items and possible action items. These will be bringing forward to the board in the December 14th meeting.
do we have an opportunity to do a little bit of the tweaking or suggestions
You
on
want
this?
to do it now?
Or wait till later? I don't know what our agenda says.
And we do have the section for other business if
Should we do the other? You want to do it then?
Do that, yeah.
Okay.
So we have four policies and/or guidelines here that we are going to be presenting on at the full board meeting. We had first reading as in essence of the November meeting. Policy 6171, operation of special education, was simply a correction of the title that Joe Cook has. And I don't think there's anything else, unless somebody has something else in that one they want to talk about? No? Okay, then that one will go forward in December. Similarly, the open enrollment policy 5113.1 had a adjustment of the title for the district administrator to the superintendent in a couple places. Really to comply with the wording that we would use in this district. Is there anybody that has any issues with that going forward for the second reading and approval? No? Okay. Good, and we'll get to 5127. We do have, on this one, we're going to have to we are asking to make another change. Previously, we had worded in here the expansion of the requirement that a student take a Achieve class to include other opportunities for online education. And that was on page 2, lines 29 through 32. But we have, and I think you have it on everybody's desk.
the white page.
Slightly different, or slightly additional change to this. At the last board, was that at TNL or
Actually, after the last board meeting.
the board meeting? We had a question on the citizenship exam and the civics test.
That's.
And I guess I'm not sure where you got this wording from, Jody?
This wording is actually exactly as it's written in the comparable NEOLA policy, which is in a series we haven't reviewed yet. So we use the same exact language from that policy, so it's exactly
So
the
that's
same.
in order to be granted a high school diploma. Beginning with the 16-17 school year, a student must successfully complete a civics assessment. And we can determine what that assessment is.
That's how the
This is
statute.
there's a statutory requirement that all graduating seniors complete a civics test, related to government and citizenship. When we, if you remember back a little over a year ago, we brought to the CNI committee, an example of the citizenship test that somebody who was going through the citizenship process would take. That is similar in nature to what the test is. We didn't want to use the term citizenship test because the state legislature might change that test. We also didn't want to give the impression that by passing that assessment, you would somehow become a naturalized citizen of the country. So it is a civics assessment. This language is added to address the statutory requirement that comes to us from the state. It was passed last year along with the posting of academic standards and all of that we have to do. This is built into that same act.
And what is that for a certain year in their education, or can they take the test at different places?
You can take the test where it would make sense, but all graduating seniors
By the time
have
you
to
come out to
pass.
graduation, you have to take it.
That was my question.
Okay.
And you know, excuse me, it would make sense, because after you've taken history and government and, et cetera, that you would have the knowledge and background to successfully complete that test. So I think that
I think there's some requirements that we would write into guidelines after the NEOLA is passed, that we talk
Okay.
about taking it during the junior year, and then you get the opportunity to retake as a senior.
That's
That
a
won't
Put that in the,
I like that.
Joe?
And just, wanted to maybe add some clarification, or at least consideration for clarification. So, and it would be on the civics assessment, so as we say, must successfully complete civics assessment as determined by Teaching and Learning Committee, as determined by the Board of Education. It's not provided by the state, so we're kind of vague, and maybe we should remain vague, that's okay.
I think that NEOLA has kept it vague in the event that the assessment changes, or that the criteria around the assessment changes from the state.
And I see why we're leaning in that direction. But could one argue that, well, I had a test in my class and it was on civics? Could a student argue that, you know? So that's what I'm a little concerned about, is a student or a parent saying, well, my child did pass an assessment on civics. So that's the other side of the being vague. That's the downside of the being vague. So I'm not necessarily set on either way right now. I just noticed that as a possibility for a downside.
Joe, are you saying that perhaps a test in government, test in history could be similar to a civics test?
Yeah.
And then a parent or a student will say, hey, wait a minute, I just took a test that was like that.
Yeah.
But they would know until they saw the copy of the civics assessment, right? Because that's not gonna be open until
Couldn't
you
you just say
actually
state
sit down and have
required
it in front of you.
Then if it changes, at least.
It just says a
Still.
civics
Yeah,
assessment.
you
So
could really go out on a limb, and Joe, you would know this, as a Boy Scout, years ago, you took some, you probably had a citizenship merit test.
You betcha.
You took some tests.
3 of them.
Yes.
I'm beginning to think along Joe's line of maybe as determined by the district or something like that.
Dr. Graves, it's a state,
The state required civics
State
test,
required
and that's
civics.
simple. And then if the state does not require it, then it's moot at that point.
So who makes up the test? Our staff or the state?
I believe the state
state
provides the questions,
Okay.
the
And
DPI.
then we put them
Yeah.
into a test format. Does it matter?
I'm not positive, but I think it's based off the citizenship test.
Okay.
So, you know, I just think if we call it, so we don't confuse people by saying, yeah, I took a civics test to pass it, just call it the state-required civics assessment, and then if the state stops requiring it, then this policy isn't gonna get in the way.
But my concern is, the state will send us the questions, then we take those questions and develop them into a format like,
it's a similar testing format as like when we have to pull kids in to do the ACT, when we have to pull kids in to do the, what used to be the WKC, the forward exam. It's a state-generated test, and we administer it.
but do they send us a test form, or do they just send us the
Yes, they
They
questions?
send us the test.
Oh, they send us the test, okay, that's what I know.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Craig?
So is there a reason why the word complete was used instead of pass?
For students in special education, they must complete it. The passing threshold is different. There's some statutory language around a student in special ed. There can be the accommodation to that.
So the thought is now to use the term state assessment, right?
Yeah, the state-required civics assessment was the proposed language.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Can you say that again, please?
A state required, okay, that would make sense. So we're gonna add that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Actually, that's interesting.
You bet.
You okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. So, because we're gonna be taking this back to the board as a second reading, we do wanna have a approval of the committee on this one. So, it'll just be a straight out motion for approval of the 5127 as modified. Well,
Yeah, I move to approve the revisions to policy 5127 graduation as amended.
is Seconded by Greg. Any other questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0 then.
Thank you.
Which gets us to guidelines 5141.2G and 6145.7G, medication to students, guidelines for field trips. We've had discussion of this a couple times now. Are we in order and ready to proceed with this one? Ann, you okay with it? I know you've had some
Oh,
questions.
yes, no, my question was answered, at the full board meeting, thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, then we'll go forward with this one at the December meeting as well. Make it happen. Okay. That includes the item, information items and possible action, which had one. We do have room for some other business here. So, and we're gonna look, if you have an item you'd like clarified from Joe Cook tonight, out of the first 4 series of policies here, feel free to present them. Joe, you wanted to do that?
Yeah, I just had one. So if we look at 3310, it's a freedom of speech in non-instructional settings. And this is being directed to our professional staff members. I was able to find a similar policy for our support staff. And what I was questioning, I was trying to find it for the Board of Education. I think it's important that board members also follow these general procedures. And I thought we had
I
that,
thought we did too.
and I just couldn't find it under the board ones.
We talked about controversial issues.
So what this is basically, we have the right to freedom of speech, our professional staff, our staff members, but there's some guidelines that we want them to consider. One thing being clearly stating that, hey, this is my opinion, I'm not representing the district. And we've run into situations like that as board members, we all have, and we all have to be very careful about when we have our own personal hat on versus our Board of Education hat, because actually everyone assumes we have our Board of Education hat on all the time.
Yep.
I found that out, so that's kind of the default for me. But I wanted to make sure that we had these clearly stated that board members also should use these as guidelines. And I just couldn't find it.
Joe, there's a little bit, if you were to go to the bylaws, 0140, page 6 of 12.
01, what? Sorry.
0140, on page 6 of the 12-page
Okay.
section. 0143 speaks about authority, and 0143.1 talks about public expression of board members.
Right, and I think we wrote that in relatively recently, Joe.
Yeah,
Is that what you're looking for?
yes.
And then if you were to go to page 7 of 12, there is that section on public expression of board members. That continues on, so.
And I can look at that a little bit more closely. Now I know where to find it, and I can look for the parallels and make sure that we're being consistent, so.
And I think the first sentence there, Joe, really does begin to address what you were talking about.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because I do know, I mean, people just assume I always have my board hat on, whether I'm in church or wherever. People just know you're an elected official.
I agree.
Okay, yeah, no,
Think
thank,
about the dinner table.
yeah, that's true. That's true, Bill. Thank you.
Okay, I got a couple. First one is quite simple. It may be a matter of understanding. And 22, 21, they list all those holidays we have to recognize. But
Yes.
it doesn't list any of the major holidays, like Christmas and Thanksgiving and all those. Is that, those are listed elsewhere?
Let me just get to 22, 21. These are considered the special days of observance. Christmas is celebrated, as a religious holiday. The district isn't just limited to having Christmas off, so it's not included in these. These go beyond
Okay.
what would be the.
That was my question of the intent.
Yeah, the intent is just to, a lot of these are days that, if not spelled out, these are days that the state feels that all students should be made aware of, and is directing us to provide them a little bit of background. And that can be done through a morning reading,
Yes.
or it can be done through formal days of observance, such as Martin Luther King Day. We have some schools that
Yes.
do
Yeah, but just last Friday we had some veterans.
with the Veterans Day activities, exactly. But when you look at perhaps, I think the Mildred Fish Harnick Day, it's a little bit less known, but something that the state feels we should have some attention.
Yeah, we don't do big.
Okay, another one that I have a question with, in 2000 series is 2412, homebound instruction.
Yes.
And I understand everything in here and it sounds fine, but what concerns me is we have another type of home instruction that, and I wish I had written this down in more detail. E-Achieve is a way that we deliver home instruction. It's not homebound. I'm wondering if there's any conflict or way that it should be worded in here to include E-Achieve.
Homebound instruction is specific for students who have a medical condition. As an
Okay, so
example,
there's
we're
really
trying to
no-
accommodate in the interim. If a family were to know that a surgery is coming up, that an illness is coming up, they could always elect to go to E-Achieve, and then they would be participating in the virtual experience. But those two sit separate. We have a number of students every year that they are gonna have an extended absence due to illness. We assign a licensed teacher in the curricular area to work with the student while at home in the short term, again, so that we can fill that gap, should they not want to go down the E-Achieve road.
Okay, so we don't have to feel that all the instructions in here about certifying the reason you're taking those courses does not apply to E-Achieve. That's a totally different.
E-Achieve it's a school choice.
Okay, good. There's another set in here, 3112 and 4112. Specify that our staff is not to contact board members. They have to go through the principal and through Lindholm and Madison, Washington DC and all that kind of stuff. They have to talk to the board member. That's just not the way we operate here. If somebody wants a board member to come and visit the classes or do some mock interviews or something like that, we've always allowed them to call us directly or email us directly, and I'm afraid, the way I read this, it's impeding that process.
I'm just refreshing myself with the.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's a good point, Bill.
And I don't know that we have to.
Was it based on evaluation?
Pardon?
I thought I read that it was based on their evaluation. If it was evaluated. No?
I don't see that in here.
Okay, I read that.
Yeah, that's not related.
Pardon?
I don't see that fitting at all. I mean, if you wanna go in and talk to a class or whatever, you're not communicating regarding their job duties or responsibilities. That's not like the same thing as a teacher calling you up, Bill, and saying, I've got a problem at this school.
Yeah.
Can you help me? I think what you're talking about is if you're invited or you wanna go to a school to participate in reading, for example, or that, I can't see how this
You don't
would
think,
impede that at all.
you don't think that that's part of the performance of their job duties?
No.
Okay.
No. I've not seen I've not seen any job description that one of the job requirements is inviting the policy chair in for, no, I mean, I've never seen that. I just think it's, when you come into that role, you're a board member, but you're also a citizen, and so I just can't imagine anyone could construe that.
And I'm
is-
comfortable with it,
yeah.
because I think there should be,
Yeah.
as I
Yeah.
put in my own notes,
Yeah.
it's a culture we've developed
Right.
that we can
Yeah.
be approached on things like
Right,
that.
right.
And I honestly, I can't think of a situation where I've been approached on something where they're mad at their principal or something. So that's- I suppose it happens, but they should.
And this policy
And I
isn't
wouldn't
going to,
accept that call,
the
yeah.
policy is not going to stop that.
Okay.
And I'll take it to another step, the policy couldn't prevent someone's right to talk to you as a constituent to a board member anyway. So we can't have all this policy, I mean, we prefer that they go through us, but if teachers are concerned, they're gonna go directly to a board member.
Yes, they do.
And I don't think policy can stop that because you're an elected official.
Well, and
So-
I wasn't even thinking about that aspect. It was
Right,
just-
right, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Amanda and I today were invited to an event over at Summitville. And it was a wonderful event,
Yeah,
but it was directly from, in that case, Jeff to us.
Yes.
And, you know,
yeah,
good, okay,
Yeah.
if we're cool with that,
Yeah.
I'm fine.
And I just point out that the policy does reference the superintendent, but when you hear NEOLA, the word superintendent references the superintendent or his designee or her designee. And when we establish the administrative rules associated with this policy, all of that will be able to be clarified
Okay.
in there.
That's a really good way to look at it.
So when you see superintendent, in the definitions that you'd see in book one, for 000 to 2000, you will see superintendent in there will refer to his or her designee.
Okay,
And
recall that conversation.
we talked about that with Richard in all of our sessions, because they wanted to avoid the redundancy around, I mean, in some instances, the policy would say the superintendent or the deputy superintendent, or the director of instruction, the superintendent. So they say superintendent or designee, and when we do the rules associated with this policy, then we're able to get specific in and around what we mean for, the professional staff, board to staff communications.
I see.
Yes, please.
You know, in the many years that I've been on the board, I have received, comments or questions from teachers about issues in their schools that they were not satisfied with. You know, and of course, I always did refer them back to their principal, and I always share a copy with Todd, so you know that what's going on, but, I guess if somebody wants to ask a question or wants to inform us, I'm not so sure that should be prohibited.
no, I would never wanna eliminate that level of transparency.
Thank you.
That'd be horrible.
Thank you.
I mean, we need that, I like to think that if it comes to us first, we're gonna take care of it. Sometimes it doesn't,
Right, it
or
comes to you
sometimes
first.
we just simply can't do what, and then it goes to you, at least we're able to explain, and then it ends there. I mean, I think staff need an endpoint if they're not satisfied with what we do. If we can't explain ourselves to the board, then maybe we made a wrong decision, and that happens. But I would never want to
Prohibit that.
prohibit or eliminate any kind of
Yeah.
free interaction with the board.
That's good time.
And you're elected officials, and teachers are constituents to a certain
That's right.
extent, so
I
you should
agree.
have that.
Good, thank you, because I would
Yeah.
be very uncomfortable if somebody wrote to me, parent, teacher, student,
Right,
that I would say, I can't communicate with you. I mean, to me, that would be just shutting the door, and I don't think that would be a good description of our job duties here.
Joe Como?
And our past practices have reflected that, so when we have received emails or calls from whether they're teachers, or any
Yeah.
employee, within the district,
Right.
we've always taken those, we've always, typically, at least what I've done is I've referred back to
Me
the
too.
appropriate
Me too.
person in charge of whatever that topic
Me too.
is to start that dialogue. A lot of times it's just getting some facts and starting a dialogue with the right people, not always though. So one of the things that I might toss out as a suggestion is, if we were to look at 3112, page 1 of 2, which deals with board staff communications, the last sentence in the first paragraph, I'm thinking of possibly striking. This is 3112, page 1 of 2.
Right.
It begins, "The Board of Education has a legitimate interest in maintaining order by directing that employee communications to the school board move initially through the chain of command to the superintendent.
Right.
Employees are expected to follow the established chain of communication as described in this policy." And I'm going to suggest that we perhaps consider striking "failure to do so may result in employee discipline." And I think that there have been people who've worked for our district who takes that to heart and feels as though, ooh, I really can't talk openly with anyone on this. Now, although we want to have that chain of command followed, because a lot of times the issues we're dealing with are in the classroom or in that location and really can't be resolved by a board member. It needs to really be talked out by the people who are involved. And so I'm just wondering if we could have some consideration given to striking that last sentence, because I don't, or do we really want to have some bite to it? If we want the bite there, you keep it in.
Oh, yeah.
I think that in the administrative guidelines that are associated with this, we could probably capture a lot of the conversation that was just put out, that, if an email does go to an individual board member, right? I'd like to point out that this talks about the school board, and the school board references the 9 members that we have on our board. The second page of this policy talks about individual connections, individual board members. And I think that, there's nothing that prevents a staff member from emailing an individual board member. But I think that this policy is addressing the emailing of like for instance, just an email, the email of the entire board, before there's a chain of command that's followed.
Right.
So, I just would offer that.
But this prohibits it. I mean, if you look on C, social interaction, looks like it's prohibitive. Board members related to the performance of job duties or responsibilities are inappropriate violations of the chain of command. It's a pretty strong statement. You want that in there?
I'm just offering clarification as to what I think that the conversation with an individual board member is.
Yes.
Versus the reaching out to the board as a whole. The board as a whole being the governance body of the district, the individual board member being somebody that they're communicating.
Right. I think.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with what's in C, especially if you go to the beginning of the sentence. Because you see somebody leveraging 5 members of the board, that's almost like creating your own walking forum.
Well, but sometimes they do send a message to all board members, and sometimes they send it to 1 or 2 of us.
It's the 1 or 2 here that's the concern. And this, under C, I think. Individual board members have no special authority.
Well, that could be cumbersome. I mean, you might have a lot of communications. Someone might say, "Mr. Baumgart, thank you for coming to Lowell. You need to,
I wouldn't want to cut that off.
No, but I would not cut it off, but do you have to report that to myself and Joe?
No.
So I mean, I think there's some things that.
I heard about it before I got a chance to talk to you.
Yeah. But I mean, there might be, you might want to count to say staff communications related to job responsibilities, or something to that effect, but I think if you're having to report every email you get from a staff member, and a lot of them are mostly just, "Thank you for coming, it's good to see you," whatever, I think if it's related to board business, that's a different story. If it's related to actual board business, then it should probably be forwarded to, or copied to Joe or other members of the board, but I think you get carried away that if every single communication you receive has to be
I agree, I don't want to.
sent to me or to.
I don't think that says that here, does it?
Well, but it doesn't distinguish which communications need to be,
I would just,
Okay.
if I may, point C, it says, discussion between staff and board members related to the performance of job duties and responsibilities are inappropriate violations of the chain of command. I think if a teacher, through their principal says, hey, we're doing a performance in third grade, or we're doing a reading in third grade, we'd like to extend an invitation to board members to come. We're really not talking about executing job duties in that, nor is the thank you for coming or thank you for your time today. That's not really in the execution of job duties. That's a general thank you for being in our school.
Right.
The performance of job duties is, I was evaluated today in Danielson Domain 4, and the principal said that I was this, and this. Here you go. That gets into the performance of job
Can
duties.
you help me out?
And that is what this policy aims to address.
Barbara?
Okay, I'm gonna set an example. When we, as a board and administration, work together and we decide that we're gonna make some major changes in curriculum offerings, which happened recently, and teachers were not accepting of conversations with their principal, come to board members, and board members then talked on behalf of the change, and ultimately resulted in no change being made. And I thought that was a very valuable discussion.
The only part I would caution there is that if these people are going around our administration to the board, and the board is now, acting in a manner
They did
contradictory.
go around central office.
Right, and to me, I think that's a situation where if that's happening, either that vote gets delayed, so there's a chance to collaborate on it, but when teachers are able to go to the board and pass something that's counter to administration without administration having an opportunity to explain or present the issue fully, that's where I can see there's an issue, and that's where I think the board needs to go back to people and say, you have to work this through with either your principal or the appropriate curriculum.
I don't wanna get into all the specific details, but that did happen.
Yeah, well, I know, I was here when it at a CNI meeting when it happened, and it was unfortunate. I think in the end, there might have been a reasonable compromise, but that's one where maybe that vote should have been delayed. It could have been delayed so that we could have all been on the same page.
Well, the delay would have interfered with students registering.
Yeah, well, then maybe it was a special meeting, but I think when you have a situation like that, a last minute unexpected change, I think needs some time to be worked through. And I believe in that particular case, those folks should have had to come and work through the appropriate CNI people. Then if they can't get it resolved, then maybe it goes in the manner it did, but I believe it probably would have been resolved before that meeting, but I think it left kind of some administrators in a bad way.
So do you think the central office piece was missing?
Yeah, I mean, there was no, we were presenting something that we thought was to the benefit of all middle school students, and a small group of teachers were able to kind of derail it, and had they been directed to go back to administration, work out a compromise on it, I think we would have been okay, but I know there were a few administrators that were pretty defeated because they thought they had worked on a pretty good program, and a group of 3 or 4 teachers were able to derail that for the entire middle school program. So that's the one issue where, I believe in the direct communications. I would never, ever want to get in the way of teachers or others talking directly to board members, but I think then you know, it has to come full circle and we have to get involved. And if it's a last minute decision like that, we may just have to delay it, find another meeting or us, you know, find another way to get that accomplished so that, you know, you, the board, isn't put in a position of potentially defeating something that could be important.
The board has to stand back and do something. Joel?
Yeah, the reason why this policy is in place is to avoid that exact
Right.
circumstance. And what needs to be clarified here is, what does the board do and what does administration do? Well, the board sets policy. That policy then is interpreted by administration and implemented by administration. And so we don't want to have end arounds going around administration and coming directly to the board. That's what this.
Well, you know, I think
That's
this
what this
should be
part is.
discussed at a total board meeting, because I think that there is some problem solving done by board members and parents sometimes.
And it, just as important, administration just can't make up new policy willy-nilly.
Oh, right.
Right.
So we have to work together, and this lays some of that out. And although there can be some sternness to this, I would rather err on the stern side than on being fluffy about it, because policy needs to be as clear as possible. But I do think we do have a concern here as a board to make sure that we are not cutting off
Yeah, that's where this all started.
communication. Yeah, so
And,
maybe we can revisit this.
well, and getting back to the question of sternness, and way back what you mentioned 15, 20 minutes ago, the possibility of deleting, because we probably never even got close to this, failure to do so may result in employee discipline.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm an employee, I'm going, whoop, maybe I don't want to talk about this, I'm gonna just sweep it under the rug, and that's not our intention.
Could that possibly be out of there in the guidelines if it gets out of hand?
It could be, the add to the guideline, could be that as part of this chain of command, you know, if a staff member has not had their issue resolved by their immediate supervisor, by the respective central office administrator, by the superintendent, then an appeal could be made to the Board of Ed. And I don't think, I think that this is really looking at job duties. I don't think that this is looking at come to read to the kindergarten,
Okay.
or, you know, visit STEM on
I'm
such and
appeased
such
on
a
that
day.
one, you can try that.
Because I think that this doesn't get away from the promotion of the good things that we have going on in the school.
Now, for everybody's reference, policy 4112 is exactly the same as this one, so whatever we do here, we have to do in the other one. So look at that little pattern. Anybody else have some issues you wanted to
And if I
present?
may
Yes,
add
please.
to that, it says failure to do so may.
Yeah.
And NEOLA is clear on may and shall. We've got a number of policies that have the word shall in it, which is really explicit about how we will operate.
You will.
May gives us the flexibility that if it's a situation where come and see my school, or come and see my program, or Barb, when we talked, had a couple of conversations around 4K with a new teacher, and you know, you were tutoring the school and they said something about their classroom and you reached out, that wouldn't result in a disciplinary
Oh, I would
type
hope not.
situation.
No, I would hope not.
But there could be the potential for that outreach to be inappropriate, and then we would have to look at it differently. And that's why the term may is in this policy, and in other policies, shall is.
Any other points in the books, the two big books, Matt, anything? Want to bring up here, Greg, anything you want to bring up here? We're okay? Okay, the only other item on the agenda would be anything that you would like to recommend for us to address at future committee meetings. Not that we don't have enough to address at future committee meetings, sorry. Oh, I shouldn't have said that, it's a bias.
Just as an update, you know, in the next month then, we'll be bringing 5,000 through 9,000 to committee. We'll be bringing 0 to 4,000 to the whole board. If you do see anything in your light evening reading through these policies, please give me a call. Again, thinking how we've treated, you know, the guideline, or I'm sorry, policy 5127 tonight. If there are things that need to be adjusted in these first 5 series, it's still a working document until the February full board meeting. So please reach out with questions.
And we're keeping Lynn busy, the board ain't been right. Okay.
I would like to know who put this all together.
NEOLA office.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, you guys could have taken some credit.
That's why we contracted.
You blew it.
Oh,
They could have taken some credit for that, like we did.
Oh, yeah,
You guys blew it.
sorry, my kids.
I'm glad you didn't.
Well, Lynn did a lot of that.
I know.
The physical assembly, right?
All the purple line.
All the purple
in your,
words in there?
yeah,
She wrote them in each of the 9.
I recognize your
and I didn't copy them.
No, she
Remember you
did.
thought I copied them,
I
yep.
was impressed with that. Okay, with that, we stand adjourned. Thank you.